What's up, softball players, coaches, and parents? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In today's video, let's talk about what should you do if your player needs a little more of that killer instinct and you're not sure how she can get it. All right, so if you're new here, I'm Coach Dan. I do lots of throwing instruction videos, strength training, arm care, softball, IQ videos. And this video today is actually from a question that I got. A parent emailed me and said, hey, my daughter, she just doesn't have a lot of aggression on the field. I feel like she could do so much better if she just sort of competed a little harder, swung a little harder, threw a little bit harder. She just doesn't have quite that killer instinct. And I'm not sure how can I help to foster that in her. So first, one thing that could help is having them play multiple sports, especially ones that involve a little more contact. Now, I'm not saying to go sign your daughter up for football or something just so that it makes her more aggressive. But when players have different sports to learn from, whether it's like lacrosse or soccer, those can become pretty physical sports. It's just going to give them different types of toughness, and they're going to learn different lessons from different players and different coaches, especially in the baseball world. A lot of the boys who play football end up having a very different personality on the baseball field than guys that don't play baseball. It's not to say you can't be very competitive only playing baseball or some different sport, but football has that aggressive aspect to it. So maybe another sport, whether it's basketball, soccer, or lacrosse, something like that, where there's a little more contact and you have to be assertive to get your place on the court, even though they're not really contact sports, those can be helpful. So maybe just encourage your daughter to take up another sport, one of these that has a little more potential contact in it, and that might help her, develop some of that killer instinct that she needs. Because on the softball field, you can just kind of stand out there and be kind of passive and just take your turn at the plate when it comes. Whereas in those other sports, you have to, like I said, assert yourself a little bit to have your place on the court. The next thing I would do is encourage inter-squad and impromptu games and competitions. So only playing at a team practice, only playing in games, you're always on the stage essentially, and other people are counting on you. The coach is going to be mad at you if you don't do well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So giving your kids more chances to play where it doesn't matter, no one's keeping a score unless they choose to, in backyard softball, backyard baseball, those give players a chance to I just want to win. No one else is really concerned about this but me. I know I had developed a lot of my competitiveness like that playing in backyard baseball as a kid, where I didn't want my buddy to beat me every day after school, and I felt very personally wounded, not wounded, but I felt very personally invested in just beating my buddy's brains out, on the backyard baseball field. So the more you can just go out and compete in the backyard in these impromptu kind of games, whether it's just playing horse in your driveway, playing basketball or whatever, I think these impromptu competitions help develop that competitiveness. And the other thing, my third thing, is attach them to a competitive group of kids. So this is the same thing. If you have a group of neighborhood kids, kind of like in the movie The Sandlot, where, the real passive main character is tagging along with Benny the Jet and all these others. And he had okay, I got to show up. I got to be more like them. They're going to eat me alive. I got to really put on my tough face. And I think there's something to be said for that. If you're the one sort of passive kid playing with a group of 9 other really aggressive girls, how are you not going to kind of rise to that competition level? And you don't want to lose. You don't want to be the loser every game. So you're going to start to grit it out like they do. So I think there's something to be said for, again, putting your daughter in a situation where she's either with a more competitive team or just doing some sort of impromptu games, backyard, whatever, where she's just in a place this is how really competitive players do it. Throw them in the mix and see what happens. And lastly, you kind of got to force them to get through what I call the hard part of the day. And this is a kind of a thing I took from the movie Blade Runner, where he's talking about, as a bounty hunter, if you've never seen the movie, how he doesn't like to eat until the hard part of the day is done. And then he goes on and fights this guy that he has to fight to take him in. And that's a lot of how these sports are. You can't always give your kid the hook and pull them out of the game when they're in a tough situation. Sometimes they got to go out there and wear it. Sometimes they got to just figure it out. Sometimes they're tired and they might need to just push through it. Or sometimes they're going to have to start against this really tough team, whatever. They're going to have to find a way to mentally rise up and get through it. So fighting those little mini battles, whether it's one inning at a time or, one really tough tournament, those things build that competitive edge and can encourage them to just rise up to the level of competition that they're facing. If they always play weak competition or they always play same level competition, then it's tough to make those jumps into doing what some of the better players do if they don't already do them themselves. So I wish there was a really good answer that I could give, but obviously everyone's personalities are what they are. I'm not a real fiery person outwardly. I'm really like a stoic person. But inside, I was very competitive on the mound, and I was pretty angry on the mound when I was pitching. And so you see it differently. You couldn't have made me into like a very rah-rah kind of guy, but if I was around a lot of rah-rah people, like maybe I would have been more of like a, I don't know, outward. So like, again, I just don't think you can really change people's personalities, but you can put them in a situation where because of those around them, they start to rise up and start to change a little bit and maybe find that competitive fire that might be within if you could stoke it in the right way. All right. Thanks again. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave one in the comments section below. Shoot me an email. Always happy to make more videos for parents to hopefully help your kids have a better career in softball.